You're live now. Excellent. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is Friday, April 26th, the amazing Senator Allison Clarkson's birthday. And we are the Senate Government Operations Committee, and we are going to get started with taking a look at H585. And we have the chair of the House Government Operations Committee with us to tell us about your work on the bill.
Good afternoon. So I'm Mike McCarthy. I represent the city of St. Albans, and I'm the chair of that House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee. Thanks for having me back. H585 is the result of years of conversations and has the support of the retirement division at the treasurer's office and I believe the Vermont Sheriff's Association. And the crux of the bill is that it would allow deputy sheriffs and sheriffs that are currently in the Group F pension to elect to be in Group G, and then new folks moving forward in those positions would be in Group G. You might recall from our pension work last biennium, we created Group G primarily for corrections officers. It is a bit of a trade, so it has higher employee contributions and an earlier retirement. It acknowledges the fact that being in work like corrections, work like law enforcement, similar to what we see in I think it's the Group C that applies to state police, there's that earlier retirement. But it is roughly actuarially neutral. It doesn't have much impact on the health of the pension at all, going from Group F to Group G because of that trade in the increased employee contributions in order to get that earlier retirement benefit. So that's what you'll hear from and what we looked at. A lot of it is very technical. It had the election transition date. So there's that election to move out of your current Group F into Group G, and then that goes away, and then the new folks that are in those positions go into Group G. That's sections 1 to 4 roughly. And I think there was pretty much consensus and unanimity on those provisions. The provision that we added to the bill as introduced came out of the report from the Act 30 S17 group that had recommended that we look at if we have sheriff's compensation set in statute, and then there's a discount of 10% from the base state paid salary for sheriffs if they're level 2 certified instead of level 3 certified. Then we also look at what happens when someone doesn't have a certification or has lost their certification. We focused in on what happens when somebody has lost their certification and included a provision that would reduce that by an additional 20% to 30%. So a sheriff who has lost their certification and has been permanently revoked by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council would see a 30% reduction in their pay from the state salary that's in statute. So take effect July 1st, and the committee voted it out 12-0 on our side. So it's the consensus position of your House Government Operations Committee. And happy to answer any questions you have.
Our wife.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What was the vote out on the floor? Was it a voice vote or was it?
Yeah, this was just a voice vote, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for McCarthy?
I like the bill, Mike, you know that. I like sections 1 through 4. I have a lot of questions on the last section you added there. Personally, I have a lot of questions.
We did too. I know that in our consideration and conversations around the county offices and the conversation you had, and that I've played a little bit of a side role in around what should the qualifications be for holding those county executive judicial positions. There's been a lot of conversation. I think something I invite you all to consider that we considered in this particular provision is what is the state's obligation to pay somebody who can't do the whole job? And what percentage of the job can a person who doesn't have a certification or the qualification to do the professional part of that office? If you move away from the sheriff and you look at, say, a state's attorney, for instance, if they've been disbarred and they're not in good standing before courts, can they actually do the job of managing the office? And should we use compensation based on those qualifications, as a way to acknowledge for the taxpayer, short of a, constructive removal from office? We definitely don't want to reduce it so much that it would be considered constructive removal. But for us, it's like, this is a person who's in this situation where they've been decertified, can't possibly do the whole job. And that's what we're actually seeing in reality. But that's what we considered and where we landed on unanimously on the House side.
Yeah, and duly noted, and it's a Friday afternoon, so I'm not gonna ask all these questions, but there's gonna be questions.
Totally understand and welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Go talk about the pay act.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Have a
having
good
me.
weekend.
You too.
Take care.
And-
All right, Rick.
Yeah.
And for last night, I have your thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Rick Sable, Office of Legislative Counsel. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I've been here.
welcome
I
back.
forgot about it. So the chair did a great job, McCarthy, of explaining 585. I can give more background, but I think he kind of explained it pretty well. As far as the words on the page, Chair McCarthy referenced that this is putting members in a group G, which before I was here, that was created for the corrections employees. The language basically mirrors what the Department of Corrections employees got. But I will point out a couple things. On page 2, you'll see that all sheriffs are eligible for currently employees to opt in. It is an opt-in. They can stay in their current retirement group if they want to. However, it's not all deputy sheriffs. You see on line 11, let's make sure that copy you guys have. Line 9 on the pass version.
On Mitch too.
Yeah, page 2, line 9. So it's all sheriffs are eligible, and deputy sheriffs who A, B, C, D are employed by county sheriff's departments that participate in VERS. Can I say that? That
Sure.
just VERS? Okay.
Yeah.
Have attained, I know VMERS and VTERS. Have attained level 2 or level 3 law enforcement officer certification from the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. C, are required to perform law enforcement duties as the primary function of their employment. And D, are not full-time deputy sheriffs compensated by the state of Vermont, whose primary function is transports as defined in 24 VSA 290 and eligible for group C pursuant to 3 VSA 455-9B. So I'll say the Treasury Department was very helpful in getting this language together, making sure it's accurate, making sure we're not taking away something we don't want to take away. So I don't know how many deputy sheriffs would not be eligible. I don't have that information, but it's not all for this opt-in.
Okay.
On page 4, page 5, excuse me. This is the eligibility for normal retirement. And again, we're basically carbon copying the retirement benefits that were given to correctional employees. It varies based on when they were hired. So subsection 4, IV on page 5. So.
3?
Yep, thank you, line 3. I have the draft and as pass version. You see here that for all sheriffs and those deputy sheriffs who meet the requirements pursuant to the previous subdivision I referenced, who were first included in the membership of the system on or before June 30th, 2008, who were employed as of December 31st, 2024, and who made this irrevocable election to join Group G, have the 1, 2, 3 for their normal retirement. If you were hired after July 1st, 2008, subsection D there gives you your normal retirement options. 65 years of age and following completion of 5 years of service, attainment of 87 points reflecting a combination of the age and age of the member and number of years of service, or 55 years of age and following completion of 20 years of creditable service. If you become a sheriff or eligible deputy sheriff after January 1st, 2025, subsection VI 6 applies to you. And your normal retirement is the attainment of earlier the attainment of 55 years of age and following completion of 20 years of credited service, or 65 years of age and following completion of 5 years of credited service. Subsection B on page, starting on page 6, starting on page 7. This is just updating, including the previous provisions I just went over, to include normal retirement allowance. So nothing really substantive there. Nothing on page 8. On page 9. See, these are your benefits, persons who become members of VERS under the subchapter and on behalf of whom contributions are paid as provided in the subchapter shall be entitled to benefits under the Vermont State Retirement System as though they were employees of the state of Vermont. These employees shall be considered Group F members. Except that elected municipal employees shall not be subject to mandatory retirement requirements. And now we're adding in sheriffs and deputy sheriffs because they're not going to be in Group G potentially. That's what subdivision 2 does. Section 4 is the creation of the one-time irrevocable election for sheriffs and eligible deputy sheriffs. On or before September 1st of this year, the Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs, in consultation with DHR and the state treasurer, shall establish a list of positions duly eligible for Group G of VERS, which shall be limited to the following. And these are saying eligible sheriff and deputy sheriffs. On page 10, in establishing subsection B, in establishing any new deputy sheriff position on and after January 1st, 2025, the Department of State's attorneys and sheriffs, in consultation with sheriff's departments, shall identify that position as eligible for either Group C membership or Group G membership pursuant to the criteria set forth in subsection A of the section.
Hold on just a second, Rick. Senator Left has a question.
I do. Okay, so I am needing a little clarity about like what's happening in section 4. How is that different than what's happening on page 2?
So this is what was done for the corrections employees in drafting this
This
language.
being section 4?
Correct.
Okay,
There
there
was-
was correction. Okay.
Right, so there was the session law created for those corrections employees to give them this one-time irrevocable election. I think there may be the thought that if we don't make that clear and the details and how that election is made, you don't want to put that in statute because it's a one-time thing. So you reference it in statute, right, that you're hired after January 1st, 2025. And before that, you have this election period. This kind of spells out that election period, how that works, who makes the decisions, that kind of.
Right, so this is the Group G that was invented for corrections.
Right.
And that sheriffs and some deputy sheriffs might be eligible for that. Then what is happening? Because it seems like we've defined Group G members on page 1 into page 2.
Of the
Yeah,
passed by
I'm just
bill?
seeing like really similar language. And I'm not understanding why it's different.
So you're saying that on page 1 and 2, we're defining Group G membership, right, by sheriffs and
Yeah.
certain.
Right,
So I think the issue that the session law is trying to solve, in addition to the timing, is also not every deputy sheriff is going to be eligible necessarily. So it's up to the sheriff departments in consultation with the Department of Sheriffs and state attorneys to kind of come up with that list of, it could be a new position that's created by the department.
Mhm.
And we want them to make that determination of, is this a Group C member or is this going to be Group D?
so 4 is not section 4 is not session law?
Section 4 is session.
It is session law.
Yes.
It's 2, is what's on page 2 session law? No, that's
Statute.
that's statute.
Right.
Okay, so what's happening in 4 is like, here's the transition.
Right.
And what's on page 2 is like, here's the ongoing definition. Okay,
And section 4 is just that this is asking the department to come up with a list of the sheriffs who meet these criteria.
oh, okay,
And so the criteria are repeated in session law.
Okay.
So that it's clear what the criteria are for the people that are put on the list. So-
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had quite a bit of help because I'm new and because this is all very, very, right. So the treasury department was very helpful in kind of fleshing this out. And it was helpful that you all just did this a couple years ago and we kind of have language that worked by all accounts. So yeah, this is heavily copied from the corrections job that was completed a couple years ago.
Thank you.
No, it's
No, it is weird because it's repeated the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like, why do we have to
Why
do
is
that?
it, yeah, but that makes more sense.
and I mean, the retirement language is already very complicated as it is.
Mhm.
So putting this in session law kind of takes out some of that potential junk that we don't need in statute. So I don't want to say junk. I wrote it.
You did.
I wrote it. Legalese. Legalese. Eloquence. All
That's
right.
right.
Your bread and butter.
Yes, thank you.
Paid by the word?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
You would get a lot more than 10 pages. Okay, then we have the, let's see, C1. A sheriff or deputy sheriff who qualifies for Group G membership shall have a one-time option. And yes, that is similar to what's in statute. For a sheriff or deputy sheriff who qualifies for Group G membership who is first employed on or after December 1st, election to join Group G under the subsection shall be made as soon as possible, but shall be within 30 days of the employee's date of hire. A lot of this is treasury. They want this the timing for their own reasons. 2, election to join Group G plan under the subsection shall be irrevocable. D, the effective date of participation in a new group plan for those employees covered under the section and who elect to transfer Group G shall be January 1st, 2025. All past service accrued through the date of transfer shall be calculated based upon the plan in which it was accrued, with all provisions and penalties about to apply. The Department of State Attorneys and Sheriffs shall notify the Office of Treasurer of changes in the Deputy Sheriff's eligibility for Group G within 30 days of the change. Nothing in this section shall be read to extend post-retirement health or other insurance benefits to Group G Deputy Sheriffs or for County Sheriff's Departments. Section 5, my colleague Tim Devlin drafted that. I can maybe answer some basic questions over it, but if you want some, deep constitutional questions would be Tim Devlin's area. And
Yeah.
the effective date.
We'll have Tim in to talk to us about that for sure. Yeah. Because this is really the same issues we've been talking about for the last 2 years. So we'll have Tim come talk.
A quick clarification?
Yeah, of course.
Because I think this is easy,
Yep.
section 5 does not apply just to retirement or pensions, as we've been discussing, this would apply to pay in general.
This is a very specific provision to a sheriff, not a deputy sheriff, just a sheriff. Whose law enforcement certification is permanently revoked, right?
Before they retire.
Right. This, it really is, there's nothing about retirement, just about the pay, yeah.
Any question for Rick? No. Great. All right, we are gonna take some testimony on this next week. We'll have the treasurer's office, we'll have Sheriff's Association and other people come in to chat with us about it. I think the FTA had some changes they want to suggest. So thank you, Rick. We'll be in touch.
Thanks for the cupcake and the cookie.
You arrived on the right day.
I did, right time, right day.
Well, fine, done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we? What's the next one? Is Tim on his way?
Yes,
or-
yes, on his way.
Okay.
It's a good thing I
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I can introduce some Middlebury College students who joined us for the day, you guys, or for the afternoon, or for a couple minutes. You wanna introduce yourselves and tell everyone where you're from? Oh, we also have Lauren Lehman, who's sandwiched in between.
Yes.
All- We could go off live.